Christen, thank you so much for coming on today.
My
I'm very
pleasure.
excited for this conversation.
Me too.
One of the things I'm kind of most fascinated to kind of kick things off, just kind of like in our conversation earlier, you were saying one of the things you've noticed a lot when it comes to working with individual, like private yoga clients, you start noticing a lot of different patterns and things that are going to kind of come up when, in order to help them kind of be able to grow and progress and kind of solve some of their different life things that they're working on.
Mhm.
What is like, kind of without having to go necessarily into specifics, what's like some of the patterns that you're kind of noticing on a regular that you've been able to kind of help people work through and has kind of like brought you along in this journey?
The number one thing is dissociation, which I actually think we should start calling something different because there's this preconceived notion for a lot of people of what dissociation is. I would actually call it disembodiment, moments where we are not present in the body, not aware of what we are experiencing in the body, and therefore in whatever environment the body's in. That as a core pattern shows up in a billion different ways. Like that creates patterns and patterns and patterns and patterns. Like when you are not embodied in a physical practice like running, weightlifting, yoga, you injure yourself. So people who are chronically dissociated or disembodied physically or during physical activities, they're getting hurt all the time. They're always in pain. And they're like, what? This is so weird. I'm like always hurt. If you're dissociated or not embodied in your relationships, in your interactions with people, you're constantly walking away from interactions like, oh God, like, why did I say that? Or I really wish I hadn't shared that. Or, oh my God, I can't believe I got so upset by that. Like, why did I? And there's conflict all the time because there's misunderstandings and miscommunication because your emotions get worked up and you don't realize it because you're not embodied. So it makes us act in these different ways. And beyond just relationships, like people pleasing in general is another pattern that I would say almost every single one of my clients deals with. Like they are too nice. They don't want to experience conflict because it's too uncomfortable emotionally. So they're just ignoring every warning sign in their body and just like going along with whatever other people are doing. So anyway, I could go on and on about the million different places that dissociation is affecting people's lives, but it at its core is the number one thing that I'm seeing like, oh, if people were just in their bodies more, they would be able to see and feel this for themselves. So the primary thing I'm teaching people is how to be in your body. And then from there, how to decipher like, what am I experiencing and what do I do about it?
That's absolute insanity and such a crazy thing to kind of hit on because that is honestly, I mean, it's something that I've like personally dealt with a lot. I always joke, I'm like, oh, I'm just chronically dissociated. And like, but then like the reality is like when you start to kind of like double click into it, you realize like, oh, actually, like, no, if I just like go for a walk, go for a run, like do anything to get this body moving, that's when like everything starts to come back and you realize like, oh, I'm actually not losing my mind. I just needed to get a little bit of movement in.
And sometimes it's not even movement. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like right now, you and I like notice your breath. You are so much more aware of your body, of the way you're talking, of the way you're moving. If you bring I tell my yoga students and my coaching clients all the time, like your body is always breathing. So long as you're living, your body is breathing without you having to pay attention to it. But the good thing about the fact that it's always happening is that in any given moment, if you stop and just go like, what's my breath doing? It's an instant way to bring you into your body. And then you're like, oh, like now that I'm noticing my breath, like there's my posture too. And
Yeah.
I was clenching my jaw and like whatever you notice, the breath is kind of like a gateway into the body.
That's, yeah. Breath work and like being kind of more conscious of how you breathe has been something just like, starting to do yoga a number of years ago and then just kind of applying what I learned from that into like everyday life.
Yes.
It's like wildly magical. Like you realize, oh, I'm feeling a little bit anxious. Okay, let's slow the breathing down, focus on the exhales, like all of, the things that you can do properly. I find it funny. I actually was just having a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and one of the things she was bringing up, was during craniosacral therapy. She was like, oh, like I'm noticing like you actually breathe through your diaphragm, which like most people are like, okay, that's what you're supposed to do. But she's like, you're not actually expanding your chest like you should. Like you need to like actually focus
Both.
on getting both so you get that full like depth of your breath.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, I'm like, that's so funny. I like now have to do the reverse of what most people like, okay, use your shoulders, kind of like breathe with your chest.
Interesting.
And now it's like, I even notice when I like go on bike rides and everything, that's something I'm like consciously trying to take that full deep breath. And it's like, I can feel like my mind just getting like clearer as, each inhale and exhale happens, which is like pretty cool. And that's honestly a really phenomenal tip. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Magical is like a good word for it. Like you said, it's like just the mere act of breathing well can not instantly change how you're feeling, like there are certain times where I would recommend movement. So you said
Yeah.
like movement is a really great way to embody. And I'm like, yeah, you don't always have to move. But if you're in like a super amped up fight or flight state, like you just had a really big conflict with someone, something really scary just happened, you're like fired up, I would not recommend that person to sit down and like just breathe.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I joke, it's like shaking up a bottle of soda and just setting it on the table. Like hold
Like-
still now and breathe. Like you got to move that energy through you.
Yeah.
But you're just average day-to-day stress and those moments of just like moving too fast and like being up in your head, checking in with your breath, it's like drops you right in. I call it yoga off the mat.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling my yoga students all the time, I'm like, this is great that you're here in the studio on the mat. Keep doing that. Never stop doing that. But the work that we do on the mat in the studio or at home is like practice. It's practicing the skills, practicing using the tools that yoga teaches us so that we can integrate them into our lives. Ideally, we're not just like rolling up the yoga mat. Like I crack up when I teach restorative yoga every Thursday evening. And I always tell them like, not only are we slowing down and getting really still for several minutes, like 8 to 10 minutes in every pose, also the transitions between poses. So when it's time to move, are you like hurrying and scurrying, or are you like easing yourself from one pose to the other? And then so we'll go through that the whole class. And even still, the second that we close class, there's people who are like up and out like so fast. I'm like, okay.
You're like, did this just go in one ear and out the other? What are we doing?
Like, we need to integrate these skills. And, to be fair though, there's no judgment because so many of those skills do become like context dependent. You just start to associate being on your yoga mat as like that's the place where you do those things. And then, driving is probably historically not a place where you're practicing breathing slowly, relaxing your shoulders, being your best self at all. So
I literally was driving over from another shoot and I was like, what is going on with all these drivers on the road? And it's like, that's the moment I just, just breathe, take it easy.
These are the opportunities for integration of our skills.
100%.
Like we don't get it right all the time. So, but we can start to gain that awareness. Awareness is like the first step,
Yes.
You can observe yourself in your road rage. And it might be painful to, for months, observe yourself raging on the road and be like, this is not my best self. I need to fix this. But sometimes we just have to observe and get to know the pattern before we can finally be like, okay, A, I'm ready to shift out of this pattern, and B, I know what to do.
Yeah.
That's the other thing about embodiment. You might have all of this awareness, like, oh, I dissociate all the time. Cool, good for you. You know this up in your brain. That is still not an embodied situation. That is a mental realization. And, there are people, I know tons of people who are like, I'm such a people pleaser. It's like ruining my life. And they're still making jokes about it. And I'm like, yep. And you will remain that way until you reach a point where you're like, I'm fed up with this. I'm ready to do something different. And I know what to do. So it's like, step 1, realize the pattern. Yeah. Step 2, painful, humble phase of observing yourself continue the pattern, even though you know better and even though you don't want to be doing it anymore. Step 3, you make an actual plan, ideally backed by neuroscience. So you're like set up for success to actually succeed at the plan.
Yes.
and then do the plan. And like the part of that last step that's so hard is that you're going to mess up and get it wrong. And like it's so easy to give up on the plan when you're like, I messed up and I didn't do the plan this time. So guess I suck at this, guess I give up. So
Yep.
there's these phases of embodiment that it's like you turn the knowledge into action, into life change over such a period of time. And that is not a quick fix. And we live in this world where people want very quick fixes.
Oh yeah, they want it immediately. It's interesting. As much as I know about all this stuff, I still find myself falling back into that like quick fix thing. And it's like, my friend, same one with like the craniosacral therapy, that's one of the things she's constantly like reminding me of, in that like, hey, like I know you want to go straight from nothing to back to your running days, but like you're in your 30s now. You spend most of your time working at a computer. Like you have all of these issues that you have to solve before you can get to that spot. And like, I'm thankful that she also kind of understands that like, I'm the type of person that if you give me the like 9 exercises and say, this will solve your problems, I will go from 0 to 100, do that. And then like a week later be like, yeah, I just ran 10 miles and had no injuries. Like that's just who I am as a person. But it's funny because it's also been like this weird trial and error, because some of the other people I've worked with and even some of the stuff that she's helped me with, most people don't see that. And most of the people that they're working with, and I'm sure it's probably similar with the people you work with, you kind of have to walk them through like one step at a time and go, hey, like you need to focus on your breath. And then next week, okay, I need you to focus on your breath and like this movement pattern. Okay, now breath, movement pattern, and mindset. And like you kind of have to do it one step like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's very rare for someone like me who's like, okay, I want you to give me the entire step list because I'm going to speed run and figure out how to like, okay, day one, obviously I'm going to do it in order, but I'm also like in the span of like a couple weeks going to be like, okay, I'm already at the end goal.
I'm expediting
and now
the
I'm like
process.
actually starting to run again. And I think like I've pressured them a little bit and been like, hey, you need to figure out a way to like give people the entire roadmap, because there are going to be a few ambitious people that will do that. And I guarantee you, if it's someone like me, I'm going to send every friend in my known universe to go work with that person. Because not only are you going to get to the end results that you're looking for, but you're also like, you're not going to be in this like slow progress thing. Granted, like this is probably exposing a little bit of my personality in this, that like I kind of tend to be in a hurry for a lot of things. And so maybe the big lesson here is I need to learn to slow down a little bit. But
balance is the key. And we all tend toward one or the other, I think. So, we don't want to be one or the other. I can get very stagnant. My husband is a very like active, motivated person that sounds like a lot like you. Like physical therapist will hand him exercises to do and he's like on it. He is not the person who does the physical therapy exercises with the physical therapist, then never looks at him again. So, I benefit so much from living with a person like him. I'm so grateful because I can get stuck in the opposite place where I'm really good at slowing down. Like I can relax and then I usually need a little bit of motivation. The trick with the clients that I work with, so I started teaching public yoga classes just like at the studio like you normally do. And then I would have students come up and be like, hey, like, do you work one-on-one? Can we do that? So I started teaching these one-on-one clients and, you sit down with someone and kind of like when you were setting up for this, it's like you're chit-chatting as you settle into the experience together. And my whole life, curiosity is pretty much my defining personality trait. Ask anyone I know, I'm going to bombard you with questions if I'm curious about what you're talking about. And I'm curious about people. So that just sort of makes me a kind of person who is motivated to be a very neutral, safe, compassionate, curious space for you. Because if I want to know about you, I can't be like giving you judgy faces as you tell me things. You're not going to talk to me, if I'm not making you feel welcome. So I'll hold space for people and they'll share things with me. And like you were saying, it got to the point where it was like, Oh my God, the patterns were mind-blowing. I mean, it would be like specific stuff that somebody would be talking to me about in a morning session, afternoon session. The next client would say the exact same flavor of thing. And I'm like,
The best thing about advertising is you can be as ridiculous as you want. And I think pretty much one of the most preposterous things you could ever see is those billboards on the side of the road, advertising billboards, because I feel like they would be better suited actually having an ad on them. Anyways, in a similar vein, if you would like your ad read here instead of my ad read here, well, let's talk about it. For the low price of $100, you too can have your product and/or service or whatever you're selling advertised here on the show. And if you appreciate what we're doing, well, the support, we appreciate it too. Okay, so this was completely unintentional, but that ad that you just watched, that's actually a way better ad for why you should hire someone like me to do your ads because, well, frankly, that guy didn't have someone behind the camera to make sure everything was in focus. And when you don't have that, well, shit goes sideways. Hire me, please. This economy sucks. Now, back to the show.
so I was like piecing together all these patterns. So the reason I bring this up is because after enough time of this, I was like, okay, we got to reach more people with this. And I started to build a curriculum out of the tools that I was offering people and figuring out what tools help in which circumstances. And I turned this into a curriculum where I do build the building blocks. And I tell my online coaching clients, like, listen, you can zip through to the end. I understand some of you are. I'm also that person. I will like to flip through at my own pace. And then I'll usually go back to the things that I feel like, okay, that's definitely what I need more work on. I have created this online program, and the patterns that we're fixing, or I don't want to use the word fix, the patterns that we are reprogramming in my program are not movement patterns. Your movement patterns will benefit from the self-awareness you're gaining from this experience, but it's like I said, the codependency, lack of boundaries, people-pleasing, perfectionism, self-criticism, habits and addictions, like all the things that plague us in our day-to-day lives and relationships. That's deep work. It involves going into some icky places in your past. A lot of people want to leave the past in the past, or a lot of people just feel like, yeah, I kind of know I need to work through my past, but it's a very overwhelming experience and I don't really know how to handle that. And I don't want to, so I'm not gonna. So the first 3 modules of my program are to basically help my students master nervous system regulation, embodiment, actually first and foremost, so that they can recognize when their nervous system is dysregulated and what kind of dysregulated, and therefore, what do they need to do? I also teach them to name their emotions. Feel your feelings. What a concept.
I know. Yeah.
And from there, then we move into parts work, which is like, I could talk at length forever and ever. Are you familiar with parts work at all?
No. What is
it? Okay. It is hands down. So it's a therapeutic approach from just like psychotherapy, essentially. It is what changed my life like instantly. So in therapy, I was like you, where I'm like, give me something to do. What's the work? What's my homework? Okay, cool. I recognize this about myself. Whoa, good to know. What do I do about it? And I'm doing the work between sessions. Like, I'm a therapist's dream come true because I'm just like deeply self-aware, deeply self-inquiring. And if you tell me, hey, this is going to help you, I'm going to do it. And it works. But even still, I was, chipping away at therapy sessions for 10 years. Like, they were helpful. I was learning a lot about myself, but I was still seeing myself like do the things that I was realizing. Like, okay, great. I know I have no boundaries anywhere in my life. Good to know. Makes sense why all my friendships and relationships have been so dysfunctional throughout my life. How do I stop doing that? And therapy couldn't really help me with that. They could tell me what to do, but they weren't telling me, what do I do when I reach a moment where, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to set a boundary. And then I set the boundary and the person is offended or mad at me for setting the boundary. Now I'm dysregulated. All my people pleasing is fired up. I'm panicking and I'm going to back out of my boundary. What do I do in those moments? What are my skills for those moments? Parts work is what shifted the game for me. So I had a therapist talking to me and I was saying a similar situation like, okay, I did it. I tried to set the boundary, but then I got very overwhelmed, very shaky, very unsure of myself, started doubting myself. That is a part of you. So the idea of parts work is that instead of this kind of concept that we are one person, like I am Kristen and I have one personality,
Yeah.
instead it's I am Kristen and there are very many voices and thoughts in here, sometimes agreeing with each other, sometimes not. Like, I guarantee there's been a moment in your life that you've been like, um, part of me really wants to go to that party on Saturday. But then there's this other part of me that knows so and so is going to be there and it might be awkward. Or even just like, I'm really tired and I've been super busy. So this other part of me just wants to like not be social and like stay home and chill. We use the language of parts very commonly. But then, like, the second we say, yeah, did you know those are actually different psychological parts of you? It's like, I don't have multiple personalities.
What?
What are you talking
Yeah.
about? Yes, you do. We
People
all
get
do.
offended by that
Yeah,
very
or
quickly.
they think you're calling them crazy, which, to be fair, like, the world of psychology has pathologized a lot of very normal human experiences. So I understand the like defensiveness around that. But the beauty of parts work is that, like, especially in our romantic relationships, parts get triggered so
Yeah.
much. So like I've had, and I'm sure most people, if you've dated enough people, you've had bad experiences in the dating world. So you have these past experiences that have come up that were things you'd never want to go through again, things that you never want to tolerate again. So like I'll see my husband do something completely just innocent, not even aware that it's going to affect me in any way. He's just living his life being himself and it triggers something in me. Or he's having a bad day, or he's tired, or he's hungry. The state you get yourself in where you're in a funky mood and I'm taking it personally. And I can see myself react in ways that are like not my true self. I'm like,
Yeah.
I 100% know this man loves me. I 100% know that he cares about my emotional well being. I 100% logically know that in this given situation, he is not even aware that he is affecting me. He is just living his life. However, there's this big reaction. There's this big, how could he, or
Yeah.
he should know. This is a part that triggers to life in these moments when something rubs us the wrong way. If we're not aware of it, then these parts sort of take over and speak for us. So after years of doing this work myself, I got to the point where I could see the moments where like I had an ex-boyfriend who told me what to do a lot. He was very authoritative and very shaming of the way that I did things. So there
Yeah.
is a part of me that sort of formed in that relationship in my past to protect me from ever being like pushed around like that again.
Yeah.
So that part of me decided like never again, can't tell me nothing. Unfortunately, my husband actually has a lot of good ideas and a lot of good advice. So there are times when
Yeah.
he's like, hey, you should try this. This would really help you. And I see myself become like that
Yeah.
younger version of myself. Like, well, now that he told me to do it, I'm never going to do it because I'm not going to be told what to do. And simultaneously in that moment, I can be feeling that reaction. And because of the embodiment work, feeling and observing that reaction from a place that is not reactive to the situation. So in parts work, there is a true self. There is a calm, rational, grounded, curious self, or like
Yeah.
even compassionate if someone's doing something that upsets you, driving in traffic.
Yes.
You can be like, that you cutting me off upset me. That is a fact. And also, maybe you're going through something. Maybe you're in your emotions up there in your car. Maybe you're having a terrible day. I can have some compassion. I've cut people off before too, not thinking about it.
I always say it's like the context of the situation. Like most people are not intentionally trying to hurt you. Like there are people in the world, not to discount that those people exist, but like most people are not ever directly trying to offend someone on something.
Exactly.
And like if you realize that it's like, oh, actually, like my reaction to this is more like indicative of something that I've experienced that brings me back to whatever that thing is. But then it sounds like this helps with being able to address that. So you like, because there's something about being consciously aware of it, but then there's also something about like you can still be consciously aware of it and still it can still take over. And so being able to not allow that to, just grab the wheel and send you off into a cornfield is probably a good thing.
Exactly. And like we were just talking about before, when you're trying to break a pattern, especially when it's a behavioral pattern, our nervous system adapts to survive whatever environment we are navigating. So whether that's childhood or a past relationship or even a job that you're stuck in that's a toxic workplace, you have to adapt to survive or fit in or navigate with any amount of grace, whatever situation you find yourself in. So oftentimes when we reach adulthood and we do have a little bit more choice and freedom about what sort of environments we're in, unfortunately, our nervous system is still adapted to the environment that it originally adapted to. So when we move out into the world and start to see these reactions to things, the tricky part about parts work is that these parts of you will get triggered to life or triggered into action to essentially try to protect you from experiencing painful emotions, is usually what it comes down to. If we can recognize that that's happening and recognize that it is just a result of nervous system adaptations, then we can move forward to reprogram that pattern through a variety of different skills. But these parts think that they are necessary in doing you a service. So there's a lot of different approaches to parts work. I am most familiar with internal family systems, and I love how Dick Schwartz is the creator, or he calls himself kind of like the discoverer of internal family systems. The long story short of internal family systems is he was a family therapist back in the 80s. So there's any sort of dysfunction with one or multiple members of the whole family comes in for therapy, and he gets to get every person's perspective on what's going on. And usually he was working with children having behavioral issues. Specifically, he was working with kids who had eating disorders. And he would work with these kids and they would realize, like, yeah, I need to not be doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. He'd have a really great session with them. And then he'd have the whole family on board. Everybody got to communicate with each other. Then the kid would still keep binging and purging. And he's like, said to a client one time, like, why? Like, he said, I'm at my wit's end. I can't beat you at this. And the part that makes that child binge and purge said, I don't really want to beat you. And he's like, well, what do you want? And his client, this child, proceeded to say, well, anytime something emotionally painful happens, I have her eat a bunch of food as a way to numb the pain and get away from the sensation, the emotion, the pain. And then she feels so ashamed of herself for eating all of that food that then I make her throw it all back up. And it's all just a way of trying to control the shame or get away from or numb from or avoid the shame and the self-loathing. So his clients, multiples of them, speaking to the fact that like different clients will be telling you the exact same things and experiencing the exact same things, his clients were using parts terminology. Like, this part of me takes over. I know I shouldn't, but then this part of me takes over. And he's like, oh God, are they all like, do they all have multiple personalities? What's going on here? Yeah. Then he realized, like, I have them too. Like, he realized when he was driving in traffic or in these different circumstances in his life that part of him would take over. So the idea of the internal family is that you have this whole internal family of parts, and a lot of them are children. Like, a lot of the things you adapted to happened in childhood. You were a younger version of yourself trying to navigate something that, like, what do you know when you're a kid, or even 20 years old for that matter? Like, what do we know about actually navigating things in a healthy way? We're just looking at the people around us. Like, how do you handle conflict? And how did my parents handle conflict? And what did love and relationship look like to my parents? And so we're just doing our best with all that past stuff. Internal family systems then gives you the ability to not just see when your parts are active, but then to actually, and this is what I love about it, it gives you these meditations, which is why it's so beautiful to pair up with my yoga experience. And that's why it crept its way into my yoga sessions, because we'd be doing our meditations at the end and I'd be like doing parts work without teaching parts work.
Yeah.
Like, when you're in meditation, what's the one thing people say? Like, I can never quiet my mind.
Yeah. Oh,
Your parts.
it's always going.
It's
Yeah.
like a conference table of parts, and they're all just chatting with each other and like, "Oh, I need to plan this," and, "Oh, I forgot how mad I am at so and so for this," and all the things going on in your head. Self in internal family systems is the presence in the background that can lean back and, like, observe all the thoughts and not be punishing of yourself for thinking, because the punisher is just another part
Yeah.
trying to
Of
punish
course.
you out of doing the bad thing, and you can just observe it all. So from that point, you can then actually look at a part like, okay, you who keeps showing up, this one thought that keeps interjecting, this one habit of mine that insists on persisting in my life, even though I know better or want to do differently. Like, what are you trying to do for me?
Yeah.
And if you can approach these parts with compassion, like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish here? These parts will give you crystal clear answers. And it's never, Dick Schwartz's book is No Bad Parts.
Yeah.
None of them are bad. None of them are saying, I'm trying to ruin your life. They're all saying, like, well, I'm trying to protect you from this, or I'm trying to make sure you do this good thing, even if berating you is the way that I have to do it. That's what I'm going to try. So, parts work. The reason I bring it up is because when we want to change a pattern, whether it's a behavioral pattern, a relational pattern, a movement pattern, even, because there are clients who I work with who are in pain, but there is a part of them that is so afraid of getting hurt that they treat their body like it's fragile. And so
Yeah.
they're resistant to the work. A part of them is resistant to the work because it's trying to protect them from getting hurt or injured.
That's honestly one of the craziest things. My backyard neighbor, he used to be a shot put, and like he worked out over at Westside Barbell, and like was one of those freaks of nature back in the day. But that was one of the things he told me. Back in like the 80s, he's like, some guy would get injured lifting a obscene amount of weight, and they would come back from all of their rehab and everything, and he's like, what actually ended up happening was their body would be healed, but because when you have an injury, your body creates a movement pattern around that injury spot. And I'm not going to say exactly the substances, but he said we would notice that after we would party on Thursday nights, we would come in the next day and have our best lifts even after injuries, because what those unnamed substances were doing was allowing them to basically take a clean slate to their entire nervous system and how their body moved. And so it was an interesting thing. He's like, oh, once we started to get conscious of it, anytime someone would, have an injury, all of a sudden you go through rehab, you only need, 2 to 3 weeks to get healed, and then, go through and do your psychological reprogramming so that your body can get back to what it needs to do.
Yes.
And I found that so fascinating. And it's even like I notice it now where it's like I have things that I was like dealing with mobility wise, and it's like, oh, like I've created this holding pattern trying to, protect myself or whatever the scenario is. And so, it's taking a while to kind of get through it. And I like mentally in my head, it's like I can know, okay, this is the thing I need to fix first. Like my body's probably healed and ready to go. It's just like the mental movement pattern that I have to kind of get back into place, which,
Yep.
Takes a lot longer when you're trying to do it the slow way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's coming up for me, it's so interesting because your lens is much more like athletic, physically focused, whereas my lens is, patterns is one of the modules in my program. So like
Yeah.
once you learn how to like navigate your inner world, then it's like apply the nervous system tools and the embodiment tools and the parts work to these specific patterns in your life. So
Yeah.
love that you were just like patterns.
Yeah,
Like, yes,
exactly.
let's
Yeah.
start there. When you're reprogramming these patterns, the clean slate bit is such a key piece of it. It's why meditation is my favorite way to circumvent your parts. Like
Yeah.
your friends doing whatever substances they were doing was kind of shutting down certain parts of their cognitive mind or circumventing them. And like this is also a big appeal with plant medicine, which is on the rise right now.
Yes.
The idea is that plant medicine or psychedelics have a way of opening up your neural pathways. Like a lot of people who do psychedelics will say, I felt like a child. When we're children, we haven't experienced enough things, like the nervous system and the brain are pattern recognizers. That is what is happening. It's like, oh, I touched the hot stove. It burnt me. Note to self,
Yep.
hot stove, no touch. And we go forward with that. When we're kids, we haven't bumped up against enough things to have like really set in stone patterns. We're
Yeah.
still kind of innocent and naive. Neural pathways pretty wide open. Like then, we get hurt physically or emotionally in all these different ways throughout life. Come adulthood, it's like we're kind of jaded, we're kind of cynical, we're really set in these pathways. We act a certain way as to stay comfortable or prevent discomfort. So the ability to reset or open up your neural pathways to be able to see things differently and do things differently is such a key part of it. Yoga Nidra meditation is like my favorite way to circumvent the thinking mind. Also, why embodiment is such a key piece, because, I tell my students, like, your mind is a time traveler.
Yes.
It's the only part of you that can actually travel time. You can remember the past, you can imagine the future. Your body is always right here, right now. And so, if you can tune into your body, if you can bring your awareness into the body, it can't get lost in the weeds of the mind as much. So, Yoga Nidra meditation takes you on this very specific and strategic journey through the body. Bit by bit, notice the right eye, the left eye, the right cheek, the left cheek. Like, you are so grounded in your body that it regulates the nervous system, for one thing. Breath is a part of Yoga Nidra meditation. You spend enough time in stillness, focused on the body, slowing your breath down and regulating your nervous system, your parts kind of like chill out a little bit. And you can find the self that's there in the background, the self that's able to observe all the busyness inside of you and around you. So from that point, you can then ask yourself, like, in Yoga Nidra, they've used for vets with PTSD, they called it eye rest, where they actually studied this in clinical studies where
That's amazing.
veterans were able to overcome their PTSD symptoms by using Yoga Nidra meditation to get themselves to that clean slate place. And then from that point, approach the traumatic memories, approach the painful emotions, approach the things that typically, when we're up in our head with those patterns, we'll circumvent and try to avoid. From that like calm, regulated place, we can then actually start to parse through and reprogram those patterns we've got in us. So even like getting sick, even having a cold and a fever, like I work with clients. I just had a session with a client this week who had the flu. She's like, can we just do a virtual session? Like, yeah, absolutely. And I swear to you, she was like so much clearer. Like she had so much clarity. Her parts were not interjecting and arguing with each other or like trying to get her to avoid going down conversation pathways that were uncomfortable. She was like so much more comfortable with the vulnerability. And whether it's because she was sick or not, I don't know. But I know when I have a fever, I'm like in another dimension, thinking differently, feeling differently. So I really think anything that can change up your ordinary circumstances and mental state can be that clean slate that you need to realize that it's actually what's stopping you is mostly up here.
Yeah, it's such a cliche thing, but I think it was like a clip from an interview I heard with Tony Robbins like a bajillion years ago, and it was something to the effect of like, if you're in a bad mood, change your physical state, because you literally can't change your mental state without changing your physical state. This is one of the few things that I get in like arguments with people online, because they're like, no, we need to be addressing mental health. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, you can't address mental health without addressing physical health.
It's true.
And it's like, it sounds so crazy on its face to be like, no, but like we can just address mental health. And I'm like, okay, I will give you your points on this, but also like, if you're just sitting at a computer all day, like most of the jobs we're doing is like typing into spreadsheets and talking with people over email and sitting in horrible fluorescent lighting and like not moving. Like you start painting the picture of this and I'm like, I start going crazy. Like I still laugh about this as a kid. One of the first jobs that I had out of high school, I worked with my friend helping in the IT department in his company. He got me the job and I was like very thankful for it. Until I was doing a lot of like the media stuff at the company, And I remember vividly having this moment. Like I, had my like dress shirt, tie, dress pants, like super nice, young, clean shaven. And I remember going in and just one day I was like realizing I was slowly losing my mind. And like the physical manifestation of it is like I stopped shaving, my hair started growing out, and I looked like a caveman just like in there. And I remember going like washing my hands one day and looking in the mirror, just going like, I got to get out of here. Like, I can't do this. And like, I remember I just like quit with no job prospects on the horizon and eventually like ended up back in a coffee shop. But like, I was able to go out and go spend time in Joshua Tree with my friend and ride my bike all the time and like
And I bet
do
your
all the
mental health
things.
improved.
Oh, it was phenomenal. Almost immediately.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I even noticed that nowadays, like as someone, I always joke, I'm like, I probably have some form of undiagnosed ADHD, which like gives me a lot of superpowers to do a lot of things. But I've never had the desire to chase a diagnosis on it because I understand in my head, like, oh, is this ADHD or is it like I've been sitting still for 9 hours straight and like, scrolling endlessly on social media or trying to like do something on a computer or insert whatever the thing is here that I can't focus on. And it's like, oh, I go for a bike ride for an hour and immediately I'm like locked in for another 4 hours.
Yeah.
Or, I realize, oh, this project I'm working on doesn't align with me internally. And so trying to like get any sort of momentum in this project is going to be basically impossible because it's something that my brain is just going like, no, you don't want to do this. And so it's like employing everything in my body to prevent me from doing it. And so that's kind of this like, I'm like just self-aware enough about it to realize that, but don't have the vocabulary or background or medical degrees or anything to be able to really articulate that in a way that I feel like people won't just immediately come at me with pitchforks and go, no, but like, this medication saved my life and like this. And it's like, okay, great. But also like, I know a lot of people that have had a lot of issues. They go on the medication and then immediately after it's like, oh, now I like, can't get anything done if I don't have my Adderall and like my sleep is dramatically impacted. Like I literally was just talking about it this morning with my wife. I was like, I love coffee. I drink an obnoxious amount of coffee. And that's coming from working in the coffee industry where I was drinking almost a gallon of coffee. Like it was obnoxious. But I literally just this morning, I was like, hey, like once I finish the current bag of coffee I have at home, like I think I need to like cut this out because like I can directly feel the impacts on my sleep. And it's like, okay, that's something I got to get dialed back in because as soon as I get locked in on sleep and all of my other better habits in life, everything just gets way better. And so like, it's not to say like you have to cut things out permanently or you have to, delete social media and never get on it ever again. But you just have to like be aware enough that like, okay, what does getting back to baseline feel like? And once you're able to get there, then know how to consciously be able to reintroduce it back in a healthy way that will allow you to continue feeling like you have that like sense of purpose and direction that you're going in. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think a big problem in general is in this conversation and every single other conversation happening on the planet today, black and white thinking.
100%,
Either or thinking.
100%.
Like we have got to stop saying that there are factually lifestyle changes that will improve your ADHD symptoms is not the same as saying you don't need medication. Do you know what I mean? Like, why not try it all?
Yeah.
Why not do everything you can to improve your symptoms?
It also, and I'll let you finish this, but this also, it's something, so from my friend, my backyard neighbor who like, they were pretty open about their steroid use back in the day, but it's something I even observed from like the fitness world now. It's become quite a problem because like the way that I look at this is like, and I know some people on like hormone replacement therapy right now. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of people, and I just literally was listening to a podcast yesterday about it. There's a epidemic of people who are just going straight to the hormone replacement therapy without getting any blood panels or anything to solve that.
Yep.
And so kind of my direction, how this ties in with like the ADHD thing is like, I know a lot of people that go straight for the medication and go like, this is the thing I need to solve the issue. And I'm like, okay, great. Like there are very few edge cases of people that probably need the medication on top of the lifestyle change. And I would be willing to bet my entire life savings that if most of these people did the lifestyle stuff first and figured out what that bare minimum was that they needed for that, they'd probably be able to solve it without needing the medication.
Or like a way lower dose.
Exactly. Or a significantly lower dose.
Well, and that's the thing too. So like, I think depression is also a really good one to talk about in this context, because I think when you're depressed, like I have experienced depression in my life. When I was in college, I would oscillate between anxiety and depression. My anxiety would cause me to be so anxious all day, every day about every single thing in my own personal life and the entire world that I saw on social media. I would try to be solving all the problems, keeping it all together, and that's not sustainable. So then I would crash out and fall into a long depressive state of like, nothing even matters. Everything is screwed. Like, my life sucks. Like, why even try? When you're in a depressed state, someone could present you, like Albert Einstein himself could appear in front of you and present you. He did not study neuroscience, so he's probably not a good person to use, but you could be given all of the best information about what would help you, and you're like, I don't care. Like, depression sucks the will to live or do anything out of you. So depression is a place where I think it's a beautiful time to have a both and conversation about lifestyle and medication. Medication for depression can help lift you out of the pits of nothingness to a place where you're like, what's that? A will to live? Ah, maybe I do want to try to make my life better. Maybe my life can be better than this.
Yeah.
Once you start to get that like flame rekindled, then that can start to help you find the motivation to make some lifestyle changes. Maybe I'm going to go on a walk every day. I hear that helps your mental health. So this is a great place where like sometimes the medication can get you to a baseline where you're stable enough to actually be able to be motivated to make lifestyle changes and then actually believe in yourself enough to make the lifestyle changes. And like I was saying before, to be able to stick with it even when you fail, because you're gonna. Like,
100%.
Nobody says, oh, I realize I need to do this. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to do it. And then you do it perfectly every day for the rest of your life and never falter on it. That's just not how people work. Like, you're going to have a day where you don't do it. And that is the test. That is the day where it's like, you need to be able to do the parts work and not hate the part of you that is, or not be overwhelmed by the part of you that hates you for failing, and instead be like, it's okay. Yeah, we can feel disappointed that we failed, but it's not even failure. It's just a little stumble, and we're just going to keep going. It doesn't need to be this whole big dramatic thing. So yeah.
You don't have to pull the emergency brake on all of your momentum just because you missed one day of doing everything. You can just go, hey, we didn't stick to the plan today. That's fine. Move on to the next day.
Yeah.
I mean, I had all of the best intentions of getting a really good workout in this morning, knowing I had a busy day, and I woke up, made my coffee, and sat on the couch for an hour and didn't get anything done. But
and it happens.
Sometimes that's how the day's going to go, and you don't have to let that one moment of, oh, I didn't have a perfect morning routine ruin your entire day of like getting things done. You can still live a normal life and like everything's good.
And that's the thing too, the parts of us that are like mad at us for that, so like, oh, you might, if you're like me, have a voice in your head that's like, oh great, another morning wasted, way to go, great, good thing we have these plans for nothing, kind of like nagging. That's allowed to be there. In fact, like, thank you. I'm grateful that I have that part of me that's like disappointed in me when I don't follow through on my goals, because those are the parts of me that are reminding me that I set those goals in the first place. And if I really turn to the part of me that's like really down on me for stumbling on my path, not following through on my goals, and ask it like, why are you being so mean to me? Like, why do you want me to feel so bad about myself? What I always get back in response is, well, I think that if I make you feel bad enough about yourself, then you won't do that anymore and you'll start doing the thing that you say you're going to do. Even though, like, has that ever worked?
That's not my motivation style.
No, it's nobody's. Nobody, when you belittle and berate them and make them feel terrible about themselves, feels more motivated. No one's like, you know what? I feel powerful and capable now. Thank you for the pep talk.
Yeah.
No. So I work with that part of me to just be like, yeah, it's okay that you feel that way, but actually it's okay. Like, it's okay to stumble. That's part of the process.
Yeah. I have a very ruthlessly introspective inner voice critic monologue, all the things. And so, yeah, very familiar with that.
Yeah.
Have you ever dove into human design at all?
A little bit, like enough to at least understand why there are some people who just go from idea to implementation very quickly, but I am actually a person who has to lean back and like marinate in all of it. I forget what all the terms are
Yeah.
in human design, but I'm intrigued by it.
Do you remember what your type is?
I feel like I am a projector. Is that a...
Yes.
I'm not a manifester, which I thought I was because I actually do tend to see the things that I want come to life. But I guess as a projector, I'm more of like I'll get there, but it's going to be in the dream stage for a long time until it's ready. And then like you talk about ADHD hyperfocus, it's like when I get on the roll, there it is.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. What about you?
I am a reflector, which is, it's an interesting thing because, so my friend Jessie I was telling you about earlier, she's like the one that's constantly kind of like feeding into all of this. But it's fascinating because it's one of those things where it's like, no one really ever explained to me like what any of that meant. And there was kind of this like thing that I've known for a long time, but it's like never really had the words to put to it. And they were like, oh yeah, you just like, your intuition is like, it's on like, there's intuitive people, and then there's intuitive people that are just right. And then there's intuitive people that like, it feels like they're kind of predicting the future because it's just this weird, like, wait, what were you talking about? And like, it's funny because I've had a lot of those moments, and it was like, the first person that told me about this was like back in like 2018, 2019. And they were like, oh yeah. And they were like kind of explaining like, oh, it's this rare personality type and all this stuff. But like, I was young, I was naive, I didn't really care. And then all of a sudden I started kind of like diving into it. And then like, I get these like, the only way to describe it is this like overwhelming feeling of like, this is going to be important. And I can't explain to you why, but this is going to be important. And it's happened so many times to the point, like, the funniest part about this is, and I'm sure she'll listen to this podcast, but one of my wife's friends, literally, she was like going through a phase. She had like dated a few people back to back to back, and she started dating this new guy. And I remember just like in the moment, just an offhanded thing. I was like, yeah, I don't feel like this is going to last very long. And I shit you not, 7 days later, she texted my wife and was like, what did Brandon say about this? She's like, yeah, we just broke up. I was like, that was, I will say that was kind of the like triggering moment for because like everything was on such a long time delay that it's like, oh, I have this idea. This is going to be important. And then it's like, I mean, literally, like, I'm not even trying to say I predicted the pandemic, but literally like 2018 and 2019, I was doing photo work for a yoga studio and literally was like the whole time just constantly like, we need to focus on like digital classes. You need to be like, we need to have like, this isn't for me. This isn't for you. This isn't for all the people in this room. But there are people that don't feel comfortable coming into a class space and they love your classes. So provide an offering for them. And like, I was like pushing that so hard. Never happened. And then like the pandemic hit and I was like, I literally threw up my hands and I texted a few people. I'm like, what have I not been saying for the past like year and a half? And then like all of a sudden everyone's like trying to figure out Zoom and like just that was chaos. And I was like, I'm not, honestly, the origination of this podcast was doing virtual production. I literally called up a friend and I was like, hey, let's record a podcast over the internet. And if this goes anywhere, cool. And so that kind of basically like But that was like my big crescendo of like a realization. But then now it's like I have all these like moments of, like, oh, like I think so many people want to get into telling and sharing their story, but like, if you don't have a good way to set up and do good sound and like learn how to do a podcast, like I can do that for you. It's a relatively easy thing to do. Or, uh, a big thing for me actually was realizing, and I started this a few years ago, but it's the whole concept of like use your voice. Because I think one of the things that we're starting to lose as so many things are going online first is the reality that like our voice is like the most unique thing about us besides our fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of people online and I love them and respect them for it, but they stick primarily with using text as their medium. And frankly, at this point, like, and especially when you look at like the rise of AI, I can tomorrow scrape your entire Instagram feed, run it through open, ChatGPT or whatever, and I could be writing blog posts as you. And no one would know the difference.
Nope. And some people are using AI to write their blog posts.
Exactly.
Saying it's them.
And so right now for me, it's also kind of funny because I do use a program that I can like make voice clones and stuff. And I'm deeply experimenting in that world for reasons that I'll talk about later. But that's one of the things where I'm like, if you use your own voice, that's how you connect with people. I learned it through like a vocal coaching class that like the way that you present and like how you sound confident, how you're able to connect with people, even just like across gender. Like a big thing learning from this course was like for men, if they can speak a little bit higher in the octave range, they're going to connect with women a lot better because you actually connect with the frequencies that you're able to reproduce with your vocal cords. And so if you think about it, women tend to talk a little bit higher, men tend to talk a little bit lower. If you're talking on like the really low end of the spectrum as a man, you're alienating half of your potential audience.
So interesting.
And like, so that like, I mean, it's all of the craziness and things that I'm kind of starting to dive into. And I was like, can't even remember how I got there, but
I was along for the ride.
Yeah. But that's like, for me, that's kind of a big thing is like, kind of making the important point that it's like people need to focus on using their voice. And especially in this online world, that's going to be the thing that's going to separate people. And I think even more so now I see, as much as I like help people with being able to do their own productions through, just using your phone or whatever you have access to. One of the things that I keep really hitting home with a lot of people is like, as soon as you have the ability to invest in, growing that, whether that's hiring someone like me or, just investing in your own equipment for things, do everything you can to be able to put out the best quality product you can. Because in a world, and there are so many marketers, people that will say it doesn't matter, but I'm saying it from a standpoint of clients that I've worked with and even just my own, like the DMs that I have from people saying like, I watch an obscene amount of YouTube and social media, and the stuff that you're putting out is just head and shoulders above it in terms of quality. And it's like enjoyable. Like even if it's a topic, like I talk a lot about like production and like all that stuff. It's for most people, not interesting stuff, but they're like, I'll still watch the whole video because it's just like pleasant to watch. And like the last kind of like point to kind of tie it all together is like, I through a lot of this stuff, and this is kind of like my soft pitch on things, but it's like the things that I've learned about this is like, it actually takes exponentially more brain power to process sound versus visuals versus touch versus smell. And so with all that in mind, that actually was like a big thing that came out of the pandemic is everyone talked about Zoom fatigue. So I go on like a live production show and I have calls with these production people and we like, it's literally like we're in the room together. We all have good mics. We have really good cameras. Everything about it sounds phenomenal. We'll be on a 4-hour Zoom call and never think twice about it and like get off it. And it's like, yeah, I'm fine. But like when all you have is, shitty laptop mics and webcams, that's when, because your brain is having to do overtime to process all that sound. And so when you put in that extra effort, you're now basically taking the cognitive load to consume your content all the way down to almost zero. And if you can do that, then now people can watch, 4 hours of whether it's teaching courses or videos or whatever it is that you're doing, and it takes no effort. Versus if someone comes off of watching your course and they're just like, oh man, I need to like take a break. Like, they have to stop every few minutes. Like there's all these benefits to putting in that extra effort up front, because then they're going to be able to like really like take it in. And then they're actually focused on what they're doing instead of just like, I can't wait to get out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. Teaching yoga, that I'm like mildly obsessed with controlling the environment.
Yeah.
For this exact reason. Like, especially in a class, like all of my classes lean heavy on the meditation. Like I'm weaving meditation into the class. My shavasanas have always been longer than your average, like 10 minutes minimum, because we're meditating. And when I'm trying to get people's nervous systems into a relaxed state where they're feeling calm and maybe even gaining some clarity, I want noises to be minimum. I don't need that fan clicking over there. I need to make sure my playlist is like dropping us into a very soothing song right at the right time. There need to be pockets of silence so people aren't just being pummeled with sound the whole time. My voice throughout class, when I'm guiding a more active part of the practice, I'm going to be enunciating a little bit more, speaking a little bit louder, maybe even talking a little bit faster. When we drop into Shavasana, my register is going to drop lower. My words are going to drag out a little bit longer. I'm going to take more spaces between my words. It kind of makes me feel like a witch. Like I'm like, and it's true. People will be like, how do you do that? I fall asleep in your Shavasana every time. And I'm like, it's just the power of my voice. It really is so magical.
Yeah. That I think once people realize, like, I've been obsessed with experiences like for a long time. And part of that came from like working in like coffee shops and kind of like curating that for people. But then also 2 books that I read, and they will never not come up in this show, Setting the Table by Danny Meyer and Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Giordaro. Unreasonable Hospitality is the basis of that show, The Bear. He's one of the like main people on it. So if you start noticing like all of the like, I think it's like season 1, season 2, like once they actually like open the restaurant and they're like doing all the like hospitality training and whatnot, like that's where a lot of that basis comes from. It's absolute insanity. But the premise for those books is based on 11 Madison Park in New York. And it's like, multi-star Michelin restaurant, like all the things. But there was a phrase in that one of the books, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was this idea that service is a performance. And like they talk about it all the time. It's like the little magic tricks that you're able to do. Like one example they gave is in 11 Madison Park, there is no like front stand where the person is standing there with a clipboard with everything. They literally like go into every single, reservation for the night. They Google that person and print out a picture of that person in a back wall somewhere, and the person memorizes all the faces and names. So then when you walk in, they go, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, like, would you like, how's your evening? And like, it's like, I got chills just like
that's amazing.
telling that story. But it's like that feeling of like, oh, you're walking into like a friend's house. Like, holy shit, that takes like
we can do
such a little bit. And then like, for like your classes, it's like being able to kind of create that manipulation of like, okay, we're going to, the music might be a little bit more upbeat while we're kind of moving, but then like, okay, the tempo is going to slow way down. We're going to like start coming down. Then we're going to relax, and your voice is going to change a little bit. And it's like, most people, they're going to be so unconscious of it.
Yes. But they're going to have the cognitive mind. You're
exactly
doing it on a non-conscious, like my online program is called Matter Over Mind, because the mind is like a ninja. It's always ready. It's always hypervigilant and looking for whatever you're trying to, especially today, like you're always getting scammed, getting lied to, getting sold to. Like there's just so much nonsense out there. So, when people are skeptical, like I think all of us have a skeptical part. That like when you're presented with someone who's trying a little too hard to convince you to be a certain way, you're like, there's a resistance that comes up.
Yeah.
So any way that you can circumvent the thinking mind that's always on guard and just like trick the body into calming down, that's my favorite thing to do. Just it's like beneficial, benevolent manipulation. It really is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm manipulating your nervous system to feel safe.
Yeah.
What a joy.
Yeah, that's something and it's one of those critical voices, but I always feel guilty of that because, like, I remember I did a video a few years ago, and I remember showing it to a friend, and it was for someone doing like sound healing, and he watched it, and he's like, I don't know what any of this is, but he's like, I really want to go check it out. And I was like, great. And he's like, what did you do? I was like, I hate to admit this, but I manipulated you through the entire thing because we actually recorded every single one of the bowls individually, and things that physically cannot happen in a sound bath, I was layering into the video. So I went, they played the tones and they explained, okay, this one's for like your heart, this one's for your mind, this one's for, all the different parts. And then I just went through and went, okay, what do I want people to think through this whole thing? And I was like, okay, so we're going to start with your heart. So you're going to feel this. And then we're going to like expand your mind. So then we're going to go into the mind, but I'm also going to like hit into your body so that you feel all these different things. And like, it was just this like emotional roller coaster. And I remember explaining this to my friend and I was like, this has to be a thing, like, layering in all these tones. And he literally told me, he's like, I actually know a guy that works in Hollywood that is brought in to layer in tones under soundtracks for exactly that emotional manipulation. Wow. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I'm not the first one to discover this, but also like, it's such an insane feeling to realize, like, I don't know, it's like, it makes me think about like nothing in our world is ever on accident. In that, like, everything you're experiencing is designed to be a certain way, and someone thought it through to an alarming level.
This is why I am so passionate about making people, or I don't know, helping people be embodied.
Yeah.
Because, like, go on social media, go on anything. What sells? What gets your attention? Social media is designed, and like, this is not a secret because the engineers who were involved in creating these social media apps have come out and said, like, the infinite scroll was a feature that, can anybody even remember a time before it, for one thing? But but they're like, yeah, we created infinite scroll so that you'll spend more time. If you reach the end of a page, you're more likely to be like, okay, done now. Well, we want to captivate as much of your attention and focus as possible. We want you to spend time on our app. So we're going to just do the infinite scroll. Likes are another thing, little dopamine hit there. So every time you get a like, that's going to, make you stay on the app a little bit longer, make you pay attention a little bit more. And now it's gotten to the point, like, I have been on YouTube a little bit more recently. And I don't know if you've noticed this or if it's just like my algorithm, but it's like, it makes me crazy, actually. The video titles are like so dramatic. Like, mysterious, jaw-dropping, shocking, fascinating, mind-blowing, you'll never guess, never be the same. It's all this like really sensationalized, emotionally dramatic, usually fear-mongering, that makes you be like, what? And then you watch the video and you're like, okay, actually none of that blew my mind or actually changed my life, but it got you to watch it. So my dream is to work with enough people that we start to create a populace that is embodied enough to be able to come across something like that and be like, I see what you're trying to do. I can feel the way that like rioted up my emotions. Therefore, I don't trust it. Like, if you can't say something, just the facts, then I'm going to be a little bit skeptical and not, we have this like epidemic of, like narcissistic abuse is like a big trendy topic of conversation. Like, narcissists here, there, and everywhere. And it's like, yes, fact. And also, there is a way to be informed about, because like a good narcissist who, and I guess when I say good, I mean like skilled.
Yeah.
Like a narcissist who is skilled at manipulation will talk you into things you never could have imagined, will talk you out of your deepest values and qualities, will make you doubt yourself, question, did I actually believe that? Do I actually feel that way? That can't happen to you if you are embodied, clear on who you are, clear on when you're feeling an emotion as a result of something that someone else is saying to you, clear on how you are feeling tempted to react from that emotional place. Like, try as you may. Back in my 20s, a narcissist really could have gotten places with me because
Yeah.
I was boundaryless, I was self-doubting, I was not embodied, I was dissociated, I was people-pleasing, so I was always focused on your experience being the most important one, not mine. Now that I've spent these years embodying and learning to feel what's happening in my body in real time, the second something starts to feel like you're trying to confuse me, trick me, make me question myself, like, you're
Yeah.
not going to get very far.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the reasons I'm so passionate, because we have lies everywhere on the internet now.
Oh, 100%.
Even I have gotten tricked twice recently. I've read a whole heartwarming article that I'm like, wow, how special to get to the end and see a photo that's obviously AI generated. And then when I look into the comments, people are like, this whole story is fabricated. And come to find out, it was just made up by AI. And I'm like,
I've clicked on like 3 videos in the past month, and it's like because it's the industry I work in, I can like within 4 seconds go, nope, AI, back out, move on. And I never feel guilty. Like I, know about title thumbnails, all that stuff. Like I hate to admit I have to kind of play into that with like a lot of this, because it's like at a certain point I'm trying to get attention so that I can have this be the thing that will hopefully sustain me, so I don't have to deal with clients I don't want to have to deal with.
People's nervous systems have adapted to that, so you have to be realistic about the nervous systems that you're working with.
Exactly.
So you're like, okay, if this is what gets your attention, fine, but like I'm going to put some quality stuff inside of it.
100%. And like it's like I'm educated, so it's like I know kind of what I'm doing and how I'm going about it. But to your point, it's like my goal is like to create something and put something in there that will like hopefully be beneficial to people. And like also my goal is like to build something in a way that's like sustainable, and the audience like knows that they're going to get something that they want out of it, and not try and go for the like random stranger on the internet, because that's how you get into a lot of problems. I had a point with that and I forget where it was. Getting to the end of the article and realizing it's AI, like that whole thing, like that for me, it's like I've had like a few that I've clicked on and I can immediately know, but then I've had a few where I've like gotten like, so my wife and I started watching YouTube at night just because like I found a few channels that she doesn't hate, and like they're fun and enjoyable, and it's like quirky people, but like it's kind of been funny because like, we watched a video the other night and I was like halfway through and I was like, wait a second, I think this is AI. And then I was like, oh no, like it's like, I don't know the like difference. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like immediately like cancel, like move on. Like, okay, this is just going to be like, and I think part of the problem that I don't like, I go back and forth on this. And a previous episode I did was working with someone who's like making like one of the largest statements against AI right now. And like, I think one of the biggest problems that I feel about it is someone who like, people come to me for that like intuitive response to things that's like objective, very like I have my opinions, but I also can just like look at the facts and go, hey, this is probably what you should do. And because of the way AI works, it's very logic based. It's very like, give it all the information, it'll spit out the thing. And so for me, I'm like, wait, you're taking my job. Like I used to be able to help people with this, and now it's like they can just go to AI and it gives the very obvious answers. And I think the reason why for me it's like watching a video that was AI generated is so offensive is because like I know that with one extra prompt, I could take all of that information that I just wasted 30 minutes of my time watching, get the quick bullet points of get to the final destination of what I want to learn, and then go on with my life and go watch something way more entertaining and fun and enjoyable. And and I think that's like a big problem that we're going to see now. I'm thankful, just like as of the time of this recording, I think it was a month ago, YouTube made like a whole statement that they're cracking down on like AI generated videos and repurposing channels, which for me, I think is like a bigger thing that I'm excited for, because there's an entire side of the industry that is just taking like really popular podcasts and YouTube videos and repurposing them into other stuff and then getting like a ton of views and attention. And then because of, the way that monetization works, it's like all I give a shit about is like attention and time on platform.
Yes.
And so because of that, it's like people are making hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars repurposing other people's content for free. And it's like most of the time it's at such a scale that legally these people can't go after them for it. And so like for me, I'm like, oh, that's actually like a really good thing because I've never had the desire to want to just like repurpose someone else's show to get attention so that I can make money. That just like,
I know,
feels like a waste of time and talent.
Not everybody thinks like us though. That's been something that like my husband and I always have to remind ourselves. Like we think of things very differently. Like I agree with you. I could never live with myself. Like it would just gross me out so much to do that. But there are people out there who just want the clicks, the traffic, the money, and period. Like there are so many just straight up lies like that are out there. Like I keep seeing this recurring, and I don't know, I would love to follow the links and see like who is like what's the point of this article?
Yeah.
But I keep seeing this recurring article. It's done it with multiple different NFL teams where they're like, this NFL team has created a rainbow section of their stadium for LGBTQ plus people to sit. And then the people in the comments are fighting with each other because, there's, you can only imagine. And it's a lie. Like they did it for like the Philadelphia Eagles and then I can't remember the teams, but I saw the same story for two different teams. And at first I was like perplexed by the story. I'm like, well, that's not like, if inclusivity is what you're going for, why would you give them a whole separate segregated section? But then when I read the comments, they were like, this is a lie. Like they said this about such and such team too. Who is benefiting from just putting completely fake stories out there?
So subtle plug, this is for Primal Intelligence. So Angus Fletcher, his wife, was the one I just had on the podcast a little while ago. The entire book is about kind of essentially our innate primal intelligence. And one of the things and chapters in the book is all about fear and anger. Your fear response, very natural thing, happens to pretty much everyone. That is indicative that your plan, null and void, doesn't work. I might be getting this wrong. I'll reread the chapter and fit it in here. Anger is when you realize that you only have one plan, and if that plan doesn't go accordingly, so help me God, you are going to move heaven and earth to make that happen. And anger is like, and just simply for me, like knowing and understanding, kind of like you're saying with like the parts stuff. And I feel like this is kind of parts language coded in there a little bit, but it's like understanding that, oh, I'm fearful. That just means that your plan that you had didn't work. That doesn't mean that there isn't a plan that can get you out of this scenario. It just means the current plan you had, scratch that. We got to move on to something else.
You're in a state of uncertainty.
You're in a state of uncertainty and you just kind of have to figure it out. Anger is when you realize you have one plan and that is the only plan. And so I think like to tie it all together, and this is like even saying with like the sensationalist YouTube titles and something that I'm consciously like, I like all of advertising, media, social media, all this stuff. It's like, I was asking this question like over the past like month. I'm like, why does everything trend towards negativity, anger, frustration, division? Like everything hits on this. And I'm like, there are so many other emotions that we can like engage people with that would be way better and way healthier for society than this. But it like, no matter what you do, no matter where you start, it always ends up there. And it was like reading this chapter in this book kind of made me realize like, oh, I think of that as like the last emotion before you get to action.
Yes.
And if you realize that like you make someone happy, great. They're going to be happy. They're not going to subscribe to your email newsletter. They're not going to buy your product. They're not going to insert all the things here. Okay, great. Yeah. So then one level down from that, you make them sad. Oh, maybe they might buy the thing to get the extra little dopamine hit. And then, or, then one level down, you make them insecure. Okay, now they've got a problem to solve. So then then you go down from there. And it's like, oh, now you've got to make them like fearful. Like, oh, if you don't buy this product, like your life is going to like go to shit. Like you got to buy this probiotic. Otherwise your gut's going to fall apart. Like, what are we even talking about?
It's all playing on emotions.
It's all playing on emotions.
Yeah.
And so I think like for me, kind of the thing that I'm like trying to kind of like piece together is like understanding of that and being able to kind of like help, I guess, more like educate people to realize like everything that you see there is like designed to be able to play on those emotions. I'll keep it as like vague as possible just so that people are fine with it. But one of the campaigns that I worked on, and it's funny, I literally have been like thinking about this, and this is, I think, the perfect opportunity to like express this. So one of the presidential campaigns I worked on 2 years ago, I laughed, and I think about this moment all of the time. We had our candidate, doing all of his interviews throughout the day. One of the reporters that came in from a opposing news station, so it's like, this is the person that's going to hold his feet to the fire and like all the shit. Best friends with the guy running our campaign. And I'm just like sitting back and I'm like, I want every single person that's watching any sort of media in any way, shape, or form to understand the person that's supposed to be the sworn enemy of this person that is sitting down for this interview. They're not actually enemies.
No, it's just
they're best friends.
Positioning. Yeah, it's just the narratives being told.
Literally just the storytelling that goes out.
Yes.
And if you realize in the moment, every single piece of content that you watch, especially in that world and literally everywhere else, is designed to trigger down through that cascading line of emotions. You'll get happiness, you'll get everything. It is going to end with fear, anger, and that's what drives to action.
Absolutely.
And it's such a tragic feeling because it's like, as one individual, I feel helpless about it. It's like there's only so much I can do in the world to try and get people to understand that. But I hope that, maybe a miracle happens and this clip goes mega viral and people actually like, hopefully that comes. But like, that's like, for me, I hope and I wish more people would kind of like land on that and realize that that's like essentially what's happening. And I think being able to, hopefully kind of get more people to feel embodied through that. And whether that's just focusing in on your breath or understanding, hey, I should probably go for a walk, or there's all these things, or for the love of God, just like put the phone down for a second.
Literally put the phone down. Which I'm saying that to myself too, but yeah.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
My screen time is egregious right now.
Well, for us too, how old are you?
32.
Okay, I'm 33. So for us too, way back when the internet was new, it actually was a fun place. Do you remember that? Do you remember when Instagram was just like fun? It
was literally when I moved to Ohio 10 years ago, it was still a great thing.
Yeah. And so I, at least speaking for myself, am still at a place where I'm like, sometimes if I'm stressed out by stuff going on in my life, there's a part of me that's like, just go have some fun on Instagram. Just like pull up the internet and scroll through some interesting stuff. And I'm stuck in this old narrative that like the internet is a feel-good place, that is a healthy place for me to take my mind off of things, when in reality, we put that phone down after 20 minutes and we're like in deep despair and rage and like helplessness about the state of the world. So yeah.
I actually, so my biggest thing that I tied this into was, you probably remember this. Do you remember what social media was called in the beginning?
I don't think I do.
It's only a one-word change.
What?
They were originally referred to as social networks.
That's right.
And I, like, for the love of God, I cannot, and I, like, was trying to dive back into time on this, and I actually, like, I almost pieced it together. So if you remember, like, back in, like, 2012, they thought the world was going to end because of the whole Mayan calendar thing. I don't remember if it was the exact time. I almost want to, like, look it up right now. But my sneaking suspicion is 2012 was the moment when we stopped calling it social networks, and that's when it like transitioned into like social media. And it's like that one word difference is the difference between social networks were hopping on, going on Facebook, catching up with your friends, you're, living life. That's how you get invited to parties and you like do
Keep
your
up with
photo
each
dump.
other.
Yeah. Until all of a sudden social media was all about like, oh, people getting like popular on the internet and like the rise of influencer culture and like, oh, you can post photos and videos of yourself. And like, if you do crazy stuff or you capture all the right attention, you can now all of a sudden make obscene amounts of money. And it's like, I always kind of thought of this in the way of like, where I grew up in Orange County, my dad works in Newport Beach. I grew up around and visually seeing a lot of obscenely wealthy people. So I had a view into that world. Most people do not have that level of connection with those people. And I think one of the things that social media did was it immediately gave us a window into the life of what that world is like.
And the ability to pretend that our world is a little bit more like that than it actually is.
Exactly. Once you like, there's like some, and it's like, I laugh because of like the people that I've worked with. I was talking about this with my dad the other day. I was like, there's only like 700 and something billionaires in the United States, and I have 3 of their phone numbers in my phone. I'm like, those odds are insane. But also I'm like, yeah, like being able to see like what that life is like and realize like that is less than like, if you divide them up equally, that would be like what, like 10 people per state. Like if you put 10 people in the state of Ohio, just randomly assorted, and we're like, okay, that's who this is. Like that's so rare.
Yeah.
But if you go on the internet, you think it's just like every other person.
Everywhere. It really is. Yeah.
I also like that's in terms of like social media. That's another thing. I'm like, man, you're hitting on like all of the things that I've been like trying to like process for a while. But one of the things that I like was thinking about is like when a clip goes like mega viral, trying to think of something that would be appropriate for this. I don't know. Let's just say like the Super Bowl for sake of keeping it neutral. One clip from that's like a minute long, if it gets, 100 million views, in that moment, that one clip is 1 minute out of a 24-hour period. The amount of eyeballs and attention on that one clip is something to the effect of like 100 human lifetimes.
Whoa.
On that one thing. And I was trying to do the math on this the other day, and it's like, given the amount of human experience that happens every single day across 7 billion people, when you start putting that into scale, there's a lot of things that I'm like there's a lot of things that I think we need to be taking care and attention to. But I think something that we need to kind of like roll back on is if something is like a flash in the pan moment, like one thing that happens, whether it's like a 5-second clip or whatever, and then, gets billions of views, that all of a sudden becomes this driving moment for, the next year or whatever. And it's like, okay, that was like 1 out of 7 billion human experiences. Like, is this indicative of bigger trend that is actually like a thing that we need to care about? Or is this like a one-off thing that it's like, okay, horrible thing that happened. We probably shouldn't be paying attention to it that closely, but like, can we just let this go, reset our nervous system?
Well, and this brings up the whole issue with people wanting to be informed. Like,
Yes.
okay, and I myself have struggled with this, and it's a common conversation. Like, well, I want to be informed. Social media makes me feel so overwhelmed, but, and again, this goes back to the black and white thinking. It's like we have this idea that your options are either be informed or don't be. No, we need to be getting into that messy middle place where we're kind of like regulating how much information we're taking in the sources of the information we're taking in, the quality of the information we're taking in. Like, a lot of people just get their news from social media, which is arguably the worst freaking place to get your news. I
Oh,
mean,
it's horrible.
there
Yeah.
are some accounts out there that are truly just telling the news, but it's in the mix with other people commenting. The comments section, I just wish we could ban the comments section. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
not. It's also a place where a lot of the most hilarious things are happening on a funny
Yeah.
post, but like the worst of humanity. I talk about it. It's like people's parts.
Yeah.
People's most fearful, angry, protective parts are all just going gung-ho on each other in the comment section.
Oh,
So,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
that's one of the things they talk about in YouTube is like reply to like the first hour of people and let it go.
My business coach is like, you will know that you've made it when you start getting your first troll comments.
Oh,
when
100%.
you start getting people just absolutely hating the shit out of you for no reason. I'm like, good. So
I
he's like, prepare for that. Celebrate it when it happens because it's a guarantee and it means that you're becoming more visible. I'm like, okay.
That's a huge thing. And I saved it as like, you know, how like sometimes people print out like, you know, someone like shitting on them as like, you know, motivation to keep doing the thing, like very David Goggins like.
Yeah.
But I in the YouTube Studio app, when I like started doing YouTube a few years ago, I saved this one comment. I literally didn't delete it. So it would be the first thing every time I opened the app because I thought it was so hilarious. And it was just like, you can tell this person clearly is just like some dude in his mom's basement, like just leaving hate comments on people.
Yep.
But like first video I did, I was like super excited, got it out. And the first comment, this guy's like, why does this guy look like he's about to cry? And I was just like, what kind of left field? Like, what? I like
People
watched the video.
Ruthless.
I'm like, dude,
he
I'm
never
like,
would have said that to your face.
No, 100%.
That's what's so crazy about the comment section.
It's people live behind that anonymity, and it's like, okay, like, you know, that's, I mean, again, it's like not to beat a dead horse on it, but it's like when you realize that like the majority of like our interactions nowadays are like online only, it's like you have to take so much extra care to like protect and like make that like a good thing.
Yes.
And it's like, it's kind of a funny thing. Like I always laugh, like I end up in a lot of heavy conversations with people online just because of sometimes posting inflammatory things online and sometimes just like sparking like thoughtful conversation. And it's like, I have people like, I can always tell really quickly how a conversation is going to go based on like how someone approaches it. And like, I'm fortunate enough to have like, you know, gotten connected through some people, and I know people that do like debate coaching, and like, it's like, you can understand very quickly, like if someone's just character assassination right out the gate, I'm like, okay, you clearly have zero context as to who I am as a person. That's fine. I don't care. Like, clearly you don't want to learn that. So I'll just at least make sure I'm good. Give you that moment of like, hey, valid point, see what you're going for. Clearly you don't want to have a conversation about this. Have a good day. But like, it just is so funny. Like I always talk about this in the context, one of my close friends from Columbus, he moved out to California a number of years ago, so I only get to see him every once in a while. But I always bring him up as my like best example of this entire thing. Because we would have these like multi-hour long, I hesitate to call them debates because that's not how we approached it. We would always kind of talk about like environmentalism, taking care of like the space that we have. But he landed on like, hey, we got to fix the environment. So he became a vegan. I spent just enough time out on like farms and everything. I was like, actually, like, I respect you, but regenerative farming is like the direction we need to go. And the downstream effect of that is there has to be a driver and a desire for the products that come out of that. And so like, if you don't have that downstream, you're not going to have all that to be able to like rebuild everything. And like, you know, we would just go back and forth for hours on end. But like, our ultimate goal was like to get to this, like, we have to conserve the environment. We care about the same thing. And we're trying to like come to that middle ground.
Yes.
And then like trying to argue the points in the path along the way. And like, for me, that's like the biggest thing that I've realized in a lot of these like bigger conversations that I have with people is like the most productive versions are ones where it's like we have like a center and we're like finding the commonalities along the way.
Mhm.
And then like the opposite productivity is when it's like I'm like trying to find, it's like playing tic-tac-toe with someone who's not playing the same game as you. And it's like I'm trying to play tic-tac-toe and they're just like off in another universe trying to like only hyper fixate on what those like differences are. And that for me was just like, I don't know, it's kind of eye-opening to see like when you realize that's like the case for a lot of people in a lot of these conversations. That's where things get interesting.
Me and my clients are constantly like, I don't even like the word client just because like the nature of the relationship I have with each of my clients
Yeah.
is like client just sounds like way too sterile of a word for it. But regardless, for, the sake of clarity, my clients and I talk all the time about how parts work. And this is the cool thing about parts work is once you start to be able to see your parts just existing and thinking and feeling and acting for you all the time,
Yeah.
then you start to see it in other people too. So there's that awareness. But then with your own parts, when you look at like, your like angry part, a part of you that gets angry when someone does a certain thing, if you can work with that part, you'll find out the anger actually has a very well-intentioned goal. It's actually trying to protect you, to save you. What looks like this scary, angry monster, if you actually are curious about it and
Yeah.
compassionate and assume that like it does have good intentions, you get to know that part of you. You'll usually find fear underneath it, like you said. Like,
Yeah.
I'm afraid, and this is something we can ask our parts when we discover a part of us that's doing something that we don't jive with, that we're like, that's not aligned with who I want to be. We can ask that part, like, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't do that? And that gets you through to the scared part of you underneath that anger is trying to protect. So then when you can do that in your own self and realize like, oh, this angry part of me that maybe I hate this angry part of me because like it makes me lash out at people that I love or lash out in ways that I'm not proud of. It's this part that you really don't like and you have a negative feeling about it. You're resistant to it and you're judgmental of it. But when you actually get to know what it's trying to do, usually you end up feeling compassion. When you're able to do that within yourself, then you are able to approach conversations where someone is super triggered by something and you can go, I know beneath that big reaction is something way more vulnerable and soft and scared and insecure. And I can root myself in that knowledge because I know that is how parts work. And that can keep my parts from reacting to their parts because there's a part of me that wants to give you something
Yeah.
when you meet me with that energy. So there's this idea in internal family systems of being self-led. Like, my parts are all there. I tell my clients that it's almost like we're driving a school bus full of children.
Yeah.
And it's like they're all welcome to be on the bus. We love every child back there, but children aren't the best drivers. So there are certain circumstances where I need the adult in the room, my true self,
Yes.
to be the one driving my interactions so that even when my angry part is like, you know what you should say, you know what you should say back. Oh yeah, well, have they ever considered? I'm like, those are all valid points. None of them need to be made right now unless we want this situation to escalate. So
Yeah.
parts work, and Dick Schwartz says this too, parts work could save the world if everybody did it. If everybody in the world, and I swear that's what I'd bet my life savings on, that if
Yeah.
we could somehow mandate that every human being alive on the planet could identify their parts, work with their parts, understand why their parts are doing the things that they're doing, understand why they have these big, often destructive reactions to things that are harming other people or harming themselves, and then could get curious and compassionate about the wounds that create those big reactions. Not only would we be like softer with ourselves, we would be softer with everyone else. And there wouldn't be just like parts versus parts. That's all I see these days.
Yeah.
Like once I learned the language of parts and that became my paradigm, I can't even really be mad at people. Parts of me
Oh, yeah.
can. Parts of me are like, that person sucks. And I'm like, true. But another part of me is like, yeah, but what do you think they probably went through to make them that way? Like, and again, it's not either or. Because like this comes into conversation when we talk about abuse. It's like, oh, this person did this horrible thing. And that is bad. And we should not condone that behavior. It was harmful. And the victim of that abuse deserves to be recognized. We are not excusing the behavior. We are just saying, yes, that was harmful. And they did it because of X, Y, and Z. And
Yep.
we can see that their own wounds are at the root of their wounding. Hurt people hurt people.
100%.
That's
Yeah.
the phrase. So
It's like I think about it in the way of like you don't ever like remove someone's responsibility from a scenario, but it's like sometimes it's better to understand the context of how they got to that spot.
For me, it just helps me not hate people.
Yeah.
And
I'm-
not feel just blinding rage. I'm like, oh my gosh, there actually is, as hard as it is to squint and see it sometimes, like enough years of doing this work, I know that there is a deep, sad, wounded inner child beneath every monstrous thing that someone does. So,
Oh, 100%. I think about it a lot. I, in 2020, had a crazy experience. According to the police report, I was robbed at gunpoint. It's not that insane other than like, well, I mean, it still is kind of insane, but, yeah, I was running around our neighborhood. Our cat had run away and someone pulled up in a car, pointed a gun out the window, was like, "Hey, give me everything you got." And like, that was like the first like out of body experience I ever had. And like, thankfully, I thank God I had like nothing on me. And I literally was just like, dude, I'm trying to find my cat right now. Like, I don't have
have
anything.
mercy.
And he just like yelled at me and then just like peeled away. And I was like, but it was like in that moment, and like, told our friends, they called the cops. And I was like, in that moment, like immediately after, thankfully found our cat very quickly. And then I was like thinking about it. I was like, okay, but like, hang on. What was his life scenario that in whatever this moment was, he was in a spot where he felt like he had to do that
Yeah.
to just some random unassuming person
To be
on the
driven
road.
to that desperation.
And I was like, there's a part of me, I was like, man, I kind of want to keep up with like, if they catch this guy, I want to be like, hey, can I like talk with
Can I
you? Like,
interview you?
can I interview you? Like,
Yeah. That's what
I
I mean
want to
about the
know, like,
curiosity, though.
it just like, but it's like, I see that so much now. And it's like, I have so many moments, and I've had all sorts of friends go through all sorts of shit in their life. And I'm just like, okay, but like, I want to have a conversation about this and like explain to me why you think this way, or, whatever.
Mhm.
Like, I have this weird, deep, like, I don't want to say dark sense of curiosity, but it's like, I want to know like what got people to that spot. Cause it's usually something that you're like, oh, I mean, you can never know for
Yeah.
like people, but yeah,
And
it's
you
kind of
learn,
crazy.
you're a storyteller. That's why you do the work you do. Me too. Storytelling is such a powerful way to show how much we all have in common, to show how universal the human condition is and the human experience is. Like the details of your story might differ from mine, but what's at the heart of it, the emotions we're moving through, the chapters of life we're moving through, these are all, very universal. So, one thing I love about the dark curiosity, which I get what you mean by that, it's like, when you see somebody pushed to a certain point, or when you see someone who's been through more than you could ever imagine and they're still here trying to be a good person with the smile on their face, to me there's something for me to learn from that. So, just the other day one of my clients was like, "You do such a good job of holding space and not making me feel judged." And I'm like, "I'm so glad." Like, if that's the least I can offer people. My mom was like that for me growing up. My mom truly told me there's nothing you can't tell me, and she walked that walk in addition to talking that talk. I'd come to her and be like, "Mom, this one's really bad," which in hindsight, I was actually a pretty good kid, but I felt like, "Oh no,
Yeah.
I made a bad move." And she was always just neutral and present. And when my friends started having kids, they were like, "Brenda, you've got such a good relationship with Kristen. How'd you do it? What's your secret?" And she said, "Don't react. When they come to you with their stuff, hold it together. You can scream into your pillow later, but do not react while they're in your presence, or they'll never feel safe coming to you again." So I had like the best teacher in this. And so when my client told me, like, "You're so good at holding space," I'm like, that's great, because I know from experience, it's so healing to be able to process. Like, my mom was my talk therapist before talk therapy was even a thing I considered.
Yeah.
To have someone hold space for you to just be any way you are, have all your parts come out, your hateful part, your judgy part, your snarky part, your all of it, to just be there, and for someone not to be like, "Oh, who knew she was such an angry, hateful person," to just be like, "Let these move through." But what's at the root of my desire to hold that space for people? I have to admit, it's curiosity.
Yeah.
I am expanded by people's stories. My consciousness, my heart grows every time I learn what someone's gone through. I find more gratitude for my life. I gain wisdom learning from their mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's only so many mistakes you can make in your life, but
Oh, yeah.
if you can study the mistakes of other people and see them move through the consequences of their actions and see them do their own processing, like, you're going to learn from that. So that curiosity to know people's stories, like, I wish that that was a universal experience. I wish that was something everybody had, because we wouldn't have the division that we have.
If, like me, you hate ad breaks and podcasts, well, we're going to keep this one straight and to the point. If you need any production help, feel free to hit me up at brandongoodyear.com. Let's get back into the episode. Oh,
if
100%.
Instead of like, you're different than me, therefore you're bad, if instead of that we were like, you're different from me, what made you that way?
Yeah.
Why? What are you afraid of? What you'll find out, just like your friend with the environmentalism conversation. Like, you're all probably scared about the same things and worried about the same things and wanting the same things. And we're just like attacking each other. Parts of us are, at least.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Like, I even think about it a lot. Like, over the past number of years, I always joke, I got Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Body when I was like 11 years old. And I'm like way too young to start thinking about this.
For sure.
Weirdly, hindsight 2020, kind of a great thing, because it means that I got started on this entire journey when it counts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think about, like, I even talked about it with my wife. I'm like, how I survived childhood is a miracle. Mom, you did fine. But like, when you think about, like, you know, growing up in like 90s, early 2000s, like,
our parents were winging it without the internet.
Yeah, like figuring it out on the fly, but also like everything was candy, everything was soda. We didn't really understand nutrition at all. Like, I think about, like, as a kid, the only thing I ever knew about health was like weight loss.
Oh, isn't that
period,
a shame?
full stop. Like, oh, and then like, as like, you know, people probably hated me for it, because it's like, as like 12, 13-year-old Brandon, I'm like, you know, reading through this like 700-page book on like health and like biohacking and all this other crazy stuff. And I'm like, guys, like, you realize, like, if weight loss is your goal, you're not actually doing the right thing, because like, if you actually just get healthy, then like naturally you'll lose weight and like all the, and you know, I'm like that, like very much well actually kind of kid, like embodied to a T. And it's like, it's carried over into like so many other things now, because it's like, having started that early now, it's like I look at it and it's like, there's so many little things here and there that it's like things start happening in my life. And I'm like, you know, like I said earlier, like, I'm working on cutting out coffee because I realize, like, oh, actually, like, my sleep is getting impaired. And like, if I can get all of that dialed in, then like, I'll be able to bring everything back to center. And it's like, you have these like awareness of things that maybe it's an unhealthy level of introspection, but it's like something that allows you to hit that spot and like take care of things. And gosh, I keep losing my train of thought on these points.
Well, but we were talking about how people's stories and learning from other people's mistakes can really help you.
So I dove into that, and it's like, I've never directly had like a health issue that does that. Like, I always think of like every single influencer person that you find online that does health. It's like, oh, I had this debilitating, life-threatening, like I was on my deathbed experience. And then like I discovered keto diets and now I'm healthy. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I never had any of that personally. My wife has had her health stuff that we've had to work through. But I also just like, you know, you can observe people around you. I was literally just able to look at my family, and it's like, you know, grandparents, whatever, and be able to go, oh, like, you're, you know, 60, 70, 80. Like, this is where you're at. And I'm like, okay, there's a decision that you made when you were in your 50s that created this, that decision back in your 40s, 30s. And I just like basically logically walked it all the way back and went, there was a decision unconsciously that you made when you were 5 years old that set you on the trajectory to that. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, I was like, okay, great. So now, like, what decisions am I going to make? And I was like, right now. And thankfully, right now was starting when I was like 11, 12. And so then it's like every decade, I kind of keep like auditing that. And I have
That's
a friend
great.
who's like a few months older than me. And, every year he's always like, yeah, man, he's like, and it's funny because it started when we were like 25. And he's like, yeah, man, 25. Like, that's just shit falls apart. That's when it ends. And I'm like, it's all downhill from there. And I laugh and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, 6 months later, I turned 25 and I'm like, no, man, I feel just as good, as, if not better.
Yeah.
And even like, so for this year for me is kind of like, this is, I guess, kind of my more like vulnerable side of it. But like for my entire life, I've always been very, very thin to like, I would say an alarming degree. I was like 135 pounds up until this year. And, working at cafes, like it's all the subtle comments people would be like, oh, like you're next to all these pastries. How are you so thin? And I'm like, well, I like ride my bike like 15 miles a day because I have to ride to work and home. And I just generally am active. I don't know what to tell you. I also don't eat this shit every day. That's my secret. And then it was a couple years ago through some work, I like was able to like regularly eat like 3 meals a day and like started to like not really like I didn't put on any weight, but I was just like my average daily steps was like 15,000 steps a day. I was like eating all the time and just like general movement. I wasn't focusing on what I was eating as much, so I was, eating Taco Bell and all sorts of shit because I just didn't have access to good food. But I was moving so much that I realized I was like, oh, eating enough food and moving enough solved all of the problems that I was trying to solve with Bulletproof Coffee and all of the supplements. And so then I was like, okay, let's take this like the next logical step further. And so then last year kind of started like really getting dialed in on nutrition a little bit more, started doing a lot more resistance training, and was like, okay, my goal is going to be my like ideal weight I want to get to is like 165 pounds. I'm like halfway there. Literally just putting on that extra bit of weight for me was able to just completely change mental state, was able to change like strength, things that, carrying cameras and backpacks and all that shit, like literally being able to like shoot all day and never think about it was just like a game changer. And it's like, there's things like that it's like, I wish more people could kind of understand that it's like, there's a lot of things that just take that like little bit of a mindset shift and a little bit of, okay, every morning instead of doing, intermittent fasting, because that's supposed to help you with mental clarity, realize, oh, actually like doing heavy resistance training workout and making sure you're eating 3 meals a day and you're actually like supplying your body with the nutrients it needs is going to be better for you specifically, not for most people,
Not
but
for the
for
generic
like,
you.
For me that needed to like put on the extra weight and like really like build to that level of strength and like what I was going for my goal specifically. That's what I needed. And it was like, oh, and then once you like start, for me, it's like once I start seeing the like progress and things, it's like you just like all gas, no
That's
brakes.
where the motivation
like,
keeps getting dripped in.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, it's been a fun journey.
Sounds like it. I love your idea of just like the auditing. Like my husband's 9 years older than me, and I'm so grateful because like I just get to look right down the path and be like, these are the things I'm going to have to be thinking about. And I mean, like, honestly, a lot of my closest female friends are now going through like menopause, perimenopause, and I'm like looking up the path, like, I don't know anything about that. So right about now is a great time to start learning this. And you mentioned looking at your grandparents. My grandma fell this summer and had a traumatic brain injury at age 88. And it's been fascinating. I mean, it's been a lot of things.
Yeah.
Fascinating among them to see how challenging it is. And we already know this with no brain injuries. It is harder to learn new things because speaking back to the neural pathways, like when you've had 88 years of a neural pathway being practiced, it is very difficult to divert from that. But if you are hoping to change any of your patterns, this is the thing. People are always like, joking about being a people pleaser. there's the implication they're going to get around to it eventually. Like, oh, I know people pleasing is so bad. I shouldn't do that. Or I know I should quit smoking, or I know I should da 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 da. What are you waiting for? Now is the easiest it's ever going to be. Every day older that you get, changing up your patterning and your programming is going to get even harder. And then watching my grandma fall and have a brain injury and have to learn like walking and talking from scratch. Walking especially struck me because, like you, my grandma and I are both very thin people. And I know she has not lifted weights in her life. I mean, I think most women, especially in her
Yeah.
generation, are not working out very much. But seeing how difficult it has been for her to learn some basic things like building the muscles in your legs that you need to just be able to stand up again and like take a couple basic steps forward was so hard for her, because not only was she having to rebuild that actual physical strength that had atrophied in her time laying in the hospital bed, but also when you say to her, we need to get your quads strong, then we're adding on top of the physical challenge the idea that she doesn't know what a quad is, and she doesn't know which kinds of actions and functions in the leg engage a quad. So on top of having to learn this stuff, she also has to be learning the basics of it. Whereas if we start now learning how the body works, or especially with these behavioral traits, like before she fell, I was over there every Tuesday just helping her and grandpa out, getting their groceries for them, helping them out with laundry, this, that, and the other. I would
Yeah.
prep some meals for them for the week, stuff like that. And I love my grandparents so much. I mean, they're truly dear to me. And also, they're a product of their generation, which is a
Yeah.
whole generation so different. Like, I think their generation has seen so much in their lifetime.
Oh
But,
my gosh, I think about that all the time.
like, we're talking, like, it's just mind blowing how much they've seen. So, there's never any judgment in it. But I'll always tell my mom, like, yeah, grandma's kooky. And grandma says it too. She'll joke and be like, check me into the loony bin. Um, but I see some of her behavioral patterns, and she is the woman that raised my mom, and my mom is the woman that raised me. This idea of womanhood and what it means to be a woman and a wife and what it means to be a good person, that is all just programmed into us as what is normal when we're kids. So when I'm looking at like the way that my grandma is behaving, like even before brain injury, I mean, I can look at it and say, like, lovingly, she's probably not going to shift to that this late in the game. Like,
Yeah.
and for the part of me that wants to rescue everyone, that's actually very helpful to realize, like, you're not going to take an 88-year-old person, or like my grandpa's 95. Like, you're
Yeah.
not going to take these people and like change up and reprogram a whole lot of their patterns. Like, that
No.
stuff is pretty set in stone. Throw a brain injury into the mix, and that's going to make it even harder to learn new things. So I've really learned in reverse, like working with my mom to take care of my grandma this summer and seeing just like, oh my God, directly in front of my eyes, the types of patterns that are handed down and taught to us, not explicitly, but like modeled for us. I'm able now to, like you said, be looking at other people and being like, taking notes.
Okay.
All right. So this pattern of mine that I downloaded from those two, that's what this is going to look like in 60 years. Like,
Yep.
I can be like, okay, it's the motivation for me to get to work on this stuff now so that I'm not trying to learn those new skills in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, and it's interesting you bring up the grandparents. So we just surprised my dad for his 60th birthday in the beginning of August, and as part of that, I wanted to sit down with my grandparents, and I'm like, I'm a filmmaker. I have access to this. It's a dream I've had forever, was to just sit down and ask them about their parents, their childhood, their whatever, just glean as much information from them as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And so I was actually able to do that with both my dad's mom. My dad's dad just passed away a year ago this September, and my mom's parents. And it was so wild to, like, you talk about like getting to hear the stories. I laugh thinking about it, and it's funny because I think my grandma will probably watch this, and my grandpa, but I find it fascinating because for me, like growing up, going into a field like this was such a like new novel thing. I come from a family of engineers. So like my dad's dad worked at Boeing, was, the thing we always talked about as a kid is he was the engineer responsible, the like safety slides, like if the plane crashes in water and the thing, he was the guy that like designed all that. And like, it's like crazy to think about. And, my mom's dad, same thing, machinist, worked in, manufacturing, like all of that. And so it's like I come from this very like logic focused, like tactile, heavy thinking skills family, which weirdly I like was able to kind of talk about with my Nana last year, and was like, hey, like I actually kind of am carrying on a lot of the tradition, because while I don't do like physical mechanical engineering, I'm doing a lot of like visual audio, like a lot of engineering and high level technical skill.
Same kind of like mindset has
Exactly. And so, but it was fascinating getting to sit down and talk with them and hear the different stories of like, when I brought up to my Nana and Papa, I was like, hey, this is what I want to do with life, going to graduate high school. And they, he was relatively successful. And he's like, I want to make sure all my grandchildren have a good education. And when I presented the school that I wanted to go to, and I wanted to go work in Hollywood and make movies and make YouTube videos, they didn't even know what YouTube was at the time. I think even my parents were a little bit skeptical when I brought that up to them, but they were like, we don't know what this is. And I'm like, they're like, are you going to get a skill? Or are you going to learn something? And I was like, well, yeah, this is what I'm going to learn. And they were like, okay, cool. Good luck. And I laughed because I told my mom, it was kind of a full circle moment for me, because I realized that was like the chip I carried on my shoulder of like, I'm going to figure out how to do everything in life. And like, I have to prove, probably a part somewhere in there.
Absolutely.
But like, that was my story I carried with me for so long of like, I'm going to prove to them that you didn't believe in what this thing is that I was doing, but like, I'm going to make it happen. And I literally took that to the logical extreme of like running production on presidential campaigns. Cause like, of course, that's like the logical extreme to take it to, which was cool to be able to talk with her. And it was funny because I even like, when I brought it up, I was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is like the success that I've been able to have with it. She was like, oh, that's cool. She's like, I'm just happy you're happy with what you're doing. And I was like, I texted Grace, I was like, well, there goes all my motivation. I crossed the finish line, like, got to figure out what to do next in life. Like, that was it. But to kind of like tie it all together, the important part of the story was being able to talk with both sets of grandparents on this, was realizing that all of the things that, implicitly was kind of coded into like, oh, you got to like go get the job and do the thing. I'm like having this conversation with my Nana, and she's like, yeah, like, your papa worked at this place and then he was fired from that. And then he worked at this place and then he was fired from there. And then he worked at this place. And I'm like sitting there and like, I didn't really bring it up because it wasn't the time or the place for it. But I was like, wait, you realize like the unreal amount of pressure that you placed on me as a kid to get the job, assuming that I like was going to have this one job that was going to be the skill and the secure thing to provide. Like, you realize that none of your life embodied that at all. And they immigrated here from England when they were like 23. So they like took the risk, took a chance on this new country. And, then on like my mom's side of the family, my grandpa's telling this story of how he like basically like had like his friends gave him a fire alarm from a fire station to wake him up for work because he was just so unmotivated to go to work. And I'm like, how is this like the two, people that essentially were like front and center in my life, I'm now just like this weird like conglomeration of both of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, this gets into like the curiosity of it, but it's like just having that like innate curiosity around like who people are. And it's like, I've been like asking a lot of these questions over the years to kind of try and understand like, what is it about like how my parents raised me, how they were raised, how, and all it's like, factors. You got to go through all the factors to get there. And, not everyone's going to have that level of curiosity or connection to be able to ask those questions. And it's like, there's a part of me that hopes I can have more of these conversations with my grandparents just to have more of them recorded. And that was the cool thing. I got to record all of them. So I have them as so like special. A keepsake for future generations and whatnot.
That's so great.
But yeah, I think that it's an important thing to know where you come from and how you got here. And it like will give you more context as to like for other people as well when you're engaging with them.
And the past is not the past. It is
It's
not in the
true.
past. It is hardwired into your current DNA and your current nervous system. I think a lot of times in parts work, there's this idea that like parts only are created by traumatic events.
Mhm.
And I think what you're speaking to is a perfect example of the fact that actually parts just get convinced of things along the way. Like, ask anybody about my mom, and what they'll say is like, Brenda's a saint. Brenda's a saint. She is there for everyone. She is so loving, so caring, always reliable. And that is true. And my mom is an angel. And part of the reason I care about people so deeply is because she taught me how to care about people so deeply. Also, my mom feels personally responsible for everyone's happiness. And so I just learned that. I just learned that that's like a way to live, or like the way that you are a good person in the world is like, if someone that you love is suffering, it is your responsibility to try to relieve their suffering. So I just learned along the way that like my role in life is to relieve people of their, challenging emotions. And that wasn't a trauma that happened to me. That wasn't even something explicitly taught to me, nor would I even say it was necessarily a bad thing that was taught to me. In fact, I don't think I'd be such a good yoga teacher if I weren't able to walk into a room and assess what everybody's needing and feeling. And like, that's very codependent of me. I know that. And this is where like the no bad parts conversation comes in. Your part of you that kind of like went hard in the direction you went in to prove something, like, thanks. Like, thanks. Thank that part of you. Cause like you can look at the success that you've achieved and be like, that is a direct result of this like unfortunate thing, but can we even call it unfortunate because of how it has gotten us places in life? I think it again comes back to a matter of balance, like we pretty much started this conversation with. Like, I need to be able to care about people. That is a skill set of mine, is to be able to assess who needs what, but to also realize that there are times that it is not my responsibility to protect people from feeling their feelings, for one thing. Like, people are supposed to be sad when sad things happen. It does no good for me to try to rescue them from their sadness. And if I'm like so hyperfixated on what everyone else needs that I'm neglecting myself, then I'm out of balance. So like these good qualities, your quality of like you said, now that your grandma said she's proud of you, you're like,
Well,
there goes all my motivation. So
yep,
you have to still have a little bit of that desire or some of that fire in there some way or another, but keep it in a balanced place so you're not like burning out and doing too much of a good thing, kind of, I think is a key part of it.
exactly. Yeah, man, I feel like that's a perfect full
It
circle,
really felt like
like,
it.
conversation.
Yeah.
So, I once again, thank you for being able to come on and have this conversation. It was really phenomenal, and I think we hit on a lot of really incredible things, and
Agreed.
hopefully, people enjoy it.
I hope so too. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.